And there's going to be pressure. It's a competition and you're representing your school, so there will be pressure around that. So there is, straight off the bat, there are emotions that you can work into your diary entry, and that should be there. I mean, unless you're a robot, you are going to feel those emotions, so you've got to talk about them. Are you going to pick if it's a sports related competition? Are you fit enough? Are you fast enough? Do you have teammates? How do you feel about your teammates? How do you feel about the sport itself? Who got you interested in this sport? Were you pressurized into this sport? Do you really love this sport? Are you trying to prove a point in this final? You know, it's a debating competition. Are you confident enough to go up in front of a room full of people that are all going to be looking at you? Are you beautiful enough? Do you have any self-doubts? Are you intelligent enough? These questions would be raging through your mind if you were in a final of a competition representing a school. Is it a singing competition? Do you sing well enough? There's going to be other people there that sing amazingly. You're going to have a lot of doubts. You're going to be judged. You have to record the details of your training. So I'm not talking about, I did this at 7 a.m, then at 7:30 I did a 100-meter sprint, and then at 8 o'clock I did some weightlifting. No, the details of your training, the challenges, yes, the minutiae and all the things that you have to do in training, but the challenges, the difficult things, and how you feel about that. Talk about your emotions. Reflect. Look at that key word, reflect on the challenges you have faced. How have you grown as a person? So you should work into your diary entry a few sentences that show how you are adapting as the days go on, how you are growing as a person and developing as a person. Consider what inspires you, or who inspires you. Is it a person? Was it an event? What's the reason behind you working so hard to get to a final and to be motivated so much to try to do well? Something must have happened in your life. Somebody must have inspired you. There must have been a time in your life when this moment seemed like a far off distant dream, and now you're within touching distance of it. Talk about that. Okay? So, at first glance, what seemed like a relatively, mundane question, this question on the diary entry, if you wanted it to be, you could have just turned it into a recording session, about a competition that's coming up. No, please don't be that boring. Talk about your emotions. Talk about your feelings. Talk about your doubts. Talk about the challenges. What do you feel? Think about the people that are around you and what they've done in your life. Reflect on how you've changed as a person, or how you're changing as a person, or how you have doubts that you will ever change as a person. That's what makes a good diary entry. Quick look at 2015's question. See if we could figure out the same. Write 2 diary entries, one which you record a time when a misunderstanding arose. Now, the phrase misunderstanding makes it sound like, ooh, I parked my car in your space. Ooh, what shall we do about it? No, it could be a life-changing misunderstanding. Okay, it could be you getting the wrong end of the stick about something and thinking that your mom did one thing or that your dad did another thing, or they thought you did something wrong, and the anger you felt about that. Nobody likes to be misunderstood, particularly young people, because adults misunderstand them all the time. They misunderstand them, and they doubt them, and they question them, and they don't necessarily perhaps respect them as fully grown adults just yet. And you know yourself how frustrating that can be. So why not talk about it? Why not take this opportunity? This is the beauty of the Leaving Cert. You can actually, this is your avenue to write about things in your life. No, you're using the voice of a person who is, you're kind of making it up. But everybody listening to this video here has had a misunderstanding with your parent or your guardian. All of you. It hasn't been roses in the garden, has it? Every single day of every year for the past 17, 18 years, 19 years, has it? No, you've had fights. You've had misunderstandings. You've had perhaps days, weeks where you haven't spoken to each other. Yeah? Where you'd come home from school and lock your bedroom door and say, I'm not going near that yoke. And your mum or your dad or your guardian or whoever was probably saying the same about you. And hopefully you worked it out. You know, you clarified the misunderstanding, and, you know, how did you feel about that? And at the end of the day, you mightn't have felt like you wanted to at the time, but I guarantee you, when you did clarify the misunderstanding and everything was fine again, it was a huge relief and a release of stress. And talk about that. Talk about that. Talk about the events, record the events of what happened, but throughout, work in your own feelings and your own reflections on what the hell is happening and what's going on and what just happened and how you feel about that. That's a good diary entry. Now let me just show you a quick example of a diary entry, a sample one. It's not exactly the best diary entry I've ever seen, but it's an example of one. And in this diary entry, it's called The Holiday from Hell. Write 3 or 4 diary entries that record the details of a disastrous holiday, real or imagined, that you experienced. Now remember, we are looking for recording of events. This is what we spoke about all the way along. We're talking about feelings. We are talking about private thoughts. Let's see if this author of this little diary entry puts these in. And we're talking about our format. So we have our date, our piece of writing. Our date, our piece of writing. Our date, our piece of writing. It's not rocket science, okay? But let's see, this is the most important thing, these things here, whether it works in. And is there any reflection? Is the person who wrote this reflecting on their behaviour, reflecting on them as themselves and how they might change? Okay, right off the bat, I noticed something that we mentioned earlier on about how it's the least formal of all the pieces of writing, question B. Because instead of saying, I couldn't believe our eyes this morning, the author just says, couldn't believe our eyes. You know, you can get away with that in the diary entry. Okay? Couldn't believe our eyes this morning when we arrived at the Polona apartment complex. The brochure said the buildings were newly built. It didn't say that they were still being built. All day we had to listen to the sound of drills and watch the JCBs right beside our block. This is all recording what's happening. And the picture on the internet showed the lovely circular swimming pool, but it didn't mention the water was absolutely freezing. Okay, I'm picking up a lot of anger here. Yeah, I think we can feel the anger. And that loud music would be blaring all day. Only my first day, and I've got a splitting headache. Look at. Never mind. Never mind. Tomorrow we'll visit the local town and see what we can find. Okay, there's a bit of reflection. Take a deep breath. It'll be okay. Let's move on. Okay, perfect. Now, there's not much private thoughts yet, although in general it's a private document. But there's nothing really intimate just yet. But let's see if in the later one. What a day. The local town, Adriano, might once have been pretty, especially near the harbour, but nowadays it's full of high-rise blocks of apartments and building sites. We traipsed the streets, but couldn't find anywhere we wanted to eat. Everywhere was too expensive or else looked run down. Maybe the town is having a makeover, like the apartments we're in, but it's not very relaxing when you can't even get a decent bite to eat. And to make everything worse, I tripped on the uneven pavement and twisted my ankle. How pathetic is that? Won't be able to try out the nightclub tonight. I was really looking forward to that since I spotted that gorgeous looking hunk at the pool. Ah, here's our private thoughts. Okay, that's quite an intimate. Can you imagine if you wrote that in a diary entry and your younger brother or your dad or your mum read that sentence? How mortified you'd be. But that's what the diary entry is all about. It's those private thoughts. You know, just the odd one. She should put one in. That's okay. Let's see the last entry she has. Is there some sort of jinx on this holiday? Again, see it's very informally written. She starts off with a sort of a a question. I managed to limp to the pool because I couldn't walk anywhere else with my sore ankle. And as well as the music, there was an organised game of bingo going on. Maybe some of the other holiday makers like bingo, but I can't stand listening to someone shouting out numbers for at least an hour. And no sign of that hunk either. Okay, you can just see it. Can't you get a sense of it? You're recording what happens, or what happened. You are putting down your feelings. You're revealing some private thoughts. And you're reflecting. Okay, that's a fairly decent diary entry. Now it continues on. I'm not able to put in the second page, but write it out and it would come to about 1.5 pages, 2 pages of foolscap. And that's what you've got to do. And you can see in each of the entries, from the first to this last one, how her emotions are changing. Okay, she starts off a little bit of miffed, but she kind of says, look, we'll be glad, never mind, we'll go on. But as the holiday is wearing on, she's getting more and more frustrated. She's getting more and more angry. Her emotions are developing. She's reflecting on the hell that she's gotten herself into. And her emotions are developing. She is changing as a person. Now, not in a very in-depth way, okay? She's not, going through a life-changing experience right here. It's kind of a funny diary entry. But the point is still the same. She is changing and she's developing, and each of the entries reflect that. Okay, that's the end of that video on diary entries. You can try and do one of them yourself. You could try and do 2018 one. If you did want to do that one, you could pause the video and take it down and give it a go. Or if you wanted to try to do the 2015 one, to give it a go and practice these diary entries, there it is there. I'll just rub out some of these lines. You could give that one a go and see how you get on and just get into the habit of practicing the different elements. Don't forget, 12.5% is going for these questions, these question Bs in general. So it's well worth practicing, taking your time and doing them. Okay, thank you.